Do you have any pain between your shoulder blades, or maybe that nagging knot that sits back there all the time, or even like day-to-day shoulder or neck pains from sitting at a desk job all day? Spend all day working on your back development, but you see no results. Well, it's time to check out your shoulder blades because they play a pivotal role in our shoulder blade function, our shoulder health, our neck health, entire postural and spinal stability. Dr. Jenny Brennicke here, licensed physical therapist, personal trainer of 10 years, and a lifelong athlete, Division I swimmer, here to give you the why and the education behind the movements that you're doing so it makes sense to you and you can apply it into your everyday life and it's meaningful to you. This is my first ever YouTube video. This is where I'm going to be posting the content that I've been wanting to put out for so long, but it's really hard to condense into 30, 45-second reels. So this is the time where I'm going to be yapping, giving you all the education. I know you guys said you wanted to see more of me, so that I'm going to deliver that here. So if you guys want to see more, make sure you subscribe, leave any comments of what you guys want to see in these content. First, let's break down the anatomy so it makes sense to us and we can understand a little bit more about what the shoulder blades are having to do. While I understand that the shoulder blades do not work in isolation, but they should be able to move independently of each other. For example, you should be able to move your shoulder blade without your shoulder moving, and vice versa. You should be able to move your shoulder without your shoulder blade moving. And then when you're asked, having to use them together is what you also want. When we can't move our shoulder blades independently of each other, this is when a cascade of problems occur and we're putting more pressure on other joints such as like the labrum, AC joint, rotator cuff, and just putting more pressure onto those things when we're doing other movements. So let's understand a little bit more about the actions of that shoulder blade and what it has to do. So first we have scapular elevation, depression. Within scapular elevation, this is going to be where your upper traps are doing the most of the motion and bringing your ears to your shoulder. Whereas scapular depression is the opposite motion, where we have those lower traps and those lower lats pulling those shoulders away from our ears. We typically live with a little bit more upward elevation, so spending more time in scapular depression is what we're going to talk about within this video. And then we have scapular protraction, retraction. This is also one of those movements that a lot of time we're spending too much time doing retraction and we don't spend enough time doing protraction and just really opening up those shoulder blades, and this is what's going to help lengthen those knots within that shoulder blade. So within scapular protraction, this is more of our serratus anterior and our pec minor causing that motion, just bringing that arm away from the body. Scapular retraction is the opposite, where we're bringing our shoulder blades together. This is going to be more of your rhomboids, your middle traps, your lower lats to cause that motion. Then we also have scapular elevation and depression, along with anterior and posterior tilting of the shoulder blades, which is performed by multiple muscles. But here we're going to talk about more of just those isolated movements of just scapular elevation, depression, protraction, retraction. For scapular depression, this is probably one of the most underrated movements because a lot of people just live with a little bit more overactivity of their upper traps. So if we already sit in a little bit more upward elevation of our shoulders to then go up into upward elevation of our arms, what happens is we now have to pull. We have to make sure we're at the top of that movement to really set those low traps back down. If people are already sitting up in that upward elevation, they bring their arms up, and we don't think about that initial depression of those shoulder blades. All you're going to be doing is pulling towards those upper lats, which is a good efficient movement, but if we're talking about the efficiency of a lat pull down, we want both our lower lats and our upper lats in the movement. To apply scapular depression, I like to do it in a lat pull down. So get in here like you normally would with a lat pull down. But then again, all we're doing here is we're just moving the shoulder blades. So we're not going to drive through those elbows to pull through those upper lats. We're first thinking about engaging those shoulder blades. Think about if you had like a block between your ear and your trap, you're trying to bring this block down close to your ear and back down rather than keeping that up the entire time and keeping that block there. So imagine just like you have that block between your ear and you're just pulling straight down, all the way down there, making sure we're not getting lower back movement in there. It's all through those lower traps and lower lats, just depressing those shoulder blades. No motion at those elbows, all within just scapular depression. So when you think about applying this and connecting it into your true lat pull down, all we're really thinking about doing is just slowing the movement down. So whenever we get into these kind of positions that we just start popping into here and start going through the motions, that's when we create this motor program where it's not necessarily anything someone's doing wrong. It's just necessarily the motor program that right when you get in that movement, that's the first thing you do is you just pull down. And if we do that years and years and years over time, that's where someone's motor program within their brain becomes a little less efficient into that movement. So slow those movement down. Make sure when you get here, it's everything through those lower traps and through those lower lats first. You depress through the shoulder blades first, and then we're pulling through those lower upper lats. We're creating an isometric control of those depressed lower lats and lower traps to then pull through those upper lats. So just slow it down. It's not about what you do, it's how you do it and the efficiency of that movement. The opposite motion of scapular depression is scapular elevation. So it's going to be like a shrug or something like that. And the question that I often get asked as a physical therapist is, should I work my traps if they're overworking and they're tight all the time? The answer to that question is it depends. You have to ask yourself, is that muscle overworking because it's tight, or is that muscle overworking because it's weak? At the end of the day, I believe that you should still lengthen and strengthen that muscle, so taking it through its entire full range of motion and then fully lengthening it the opposite direction. For scapular protraction, this could be mainly engaging our muscle called our serratus anterior. This is like our main box adductors muscle or protractor of our shoulder blade. We spend a lot of time doing retraction, but sometimes we also need to think about the opposite motion, which is protraction. So when you think about doing protraction related exercises, my favorite one is like a scap push-up. So we're gonna get on the floor, keeping our elbows locked out the entire time. We're gonna bring our shoulder blades together, and then they're gonna drive them away as far as you can, trying to round your back. They're gonna do that again, sinking those shoulder blades together to then drive and push away. You're trying to bring your face away from the ground as far as possible and really protract those shoulders and really round them through. You can also do these single arm. If you have any asymmetries right versus left, I recommend doing a single arm. So if it's too hard to do in a push-up position, you can do it a modified push-up. But I like to kind of have my hand on that serratus anterior so you can kind of feel it pop into your hand as you sink it down to then drive away. Sink it down, drive away. You can also apply this in other motions. This is more of a closed kinetic chain exercise where we're in contact with the ground. We can also do it in an open kinetic chain where it's like a J scoop or even like a cable punch press. That's another one that I really like. For scapular retraction, this is one of those movements that might seem like common sense, but it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. So the biggest question I want you to ask yourself on a row is what joint is moving first? Is it going to be your elbow or is it your shoulder blades? If our goal is to activate and move our back, we want to make sure our shoulder blades are the first thing moving and the rear delt follows through with it. So when we think about doing our row here, like I said before, the biggest mistake here is people will just pull through the rear delts. So if you think about it, like I said before, the first joint moving, we want our lower traps and our middle traps to be the first thing that moves. If our rear delt is the first thing that moves, what happens is you'll see here is your shoulder starts to dump forward. When that shoulder really dumps forward, it's putting more pressure on your rotator cuff, AC joints, everything, and that's where the cascade of problems occur. So think about really pulling those shoulder blades back first, and then we pull through. Reset it that way. So when we come back, we don't pull just through those rear delts and let those shoulder blades kind of dump forward. We keep that retraction the entire time, and then we just pull through those rear delts and those upper lats. So think about really pulling through those shoulder blades and then coming back. Pulling through those shoulder blades and then coming back. If you're looking for more resources on shoulder blade health and function, head over to my Instagram. I have plenty of content available on that, as well as feet, shoulder function, back health, whatever you may think about, it's there. I'll put all the links to my programs and social media down below. Make sure you guys subscribe and give a big old thumbs up if you like this video.